Hey there, I'm Lance.
I'm Jeremy.
And we are Hard to Master, where we take a look at games that are hard to master, such as
Carnival Zombie by Albe Pavo, I believe you said. Pronunciation may be a little off, but Albe Pavo they're an Italian company over in Italy, and this is actually a second edition. So it's a second edition of Carnival Zombie. It's a game that's about 8-9 years old that finally got a reprint and some additional content added to it. And so really excited to have the opportunity to look at this and look at the deluxe version. We are going to give you a little background of the base game, but tailor a little bit more of our focus towards some of the deluxe content that if you backed it or you find a copy, you can see what makes that edition a little bit more special. And so Carnival Zombie is a cooperative game that is a infected or zombie type game, but it brings a whole new gameplay mechanics to the table. So based off the Carnival season in Italy right before Lent, has the same kind of attire that people wear when you see the characters or the bosses. Even on the board, you'll see maybe some from what the infected are supposed to represent. And so in this cooperative game, you're doing different things in different modes or times of day. And so you're going to start with a piece on the board, and that piece would start in a location. And you're going to have 3 different options. In your setup, you can set up with an easy mode, a medium mode, or a hard mode, and your token will be there. And again, some of these are deluxe components, so otherwise it'll be a punch board piece. So this token, if we want it easy, would be here. In the daytime, what you're trying to do is you're trying to prepare, but you're also moving around the city to get into locations to try and escape the city and initiate this finale by the end of the 3rd day. So I could spend my hours in the day to move. In some locations, we'll have a foundry token. That means that location's kind of underwater or sinking. Or it may just have a +1, which makes movement to that region a little bit more difficult. In addition to that, you could find items in your deck, or you could put up these brown cubes as barricades into your storage so that you can use that in the tower defense night phase to try and survive the night and escape into the next day phase into a certain region of the board or direction. So that's the day phase. And the night phase, like I said, you're going to be spawning these infected. You're going to have your character miniatures here in the middle zone. They do not come painted. These are miniatures, but they do have standees too. So if you're not a painter, you can substitute them in and get more of a decorative feel of the board and not have just gray plastic on the board. But your characters, not a boss.
I was going to say, I don't think that guy goes in the middle.
I thought you pulled them off. So if you want to pull the other character out, we'll put it over there. These are the deluxe characters. We'll talk more about them in a little bit. But in addition to that, I'm going to be drawing a different number of cubes out based on the game modes. So if it's easy mode, so many, medium or hard. And I'm going to start spawning them around the board. And they will move in different ways. So purple are a little bit stronger. Gray, the Goliaths, are a little bit harder to take out because they have more health. Then you have the dogs, they're white cubes. They'll move quicker on the board, so they move 2 spaces instead of 1. And then you have your normal vermin, green, infected, and they're just, one of everything. So these cubes will come out on the board, and they'll be placed in these different regions, and then they'll move in. In addition to that, you're going to have different boss cards, and those will spawn bosses a certain number based on your difficulty, and they will be out here, and they'll have an ability that changes that time that boss is on the board. It makes it more difficult. Some are really tough. Some are just a nuisance, and there's about 1 or 2 that that aren't the biggest threat to worry
can
about.
add more characters on the board, more monsters on the board, and if you don't take them out soon, then they do become big problems. So there's a timing element to it as well.
Or some will have everybody moving quicker through the board.
Yeah.
You have some that if you draw it, you'll have a deck of cards which used to randomize everything. I really like those cards because no matter what you're doing, anything that is quoted random, you're going to flip that card. It's going to tell you which character gets that bonus, which character gets damage, different things like that.
That's really cool. I like that.
And the Joker, I believe, is the one that you flip over a card, and if it matches a certain thing, then they dodge. They negate that damage. So it's kind of like their
interesting flip.
Yeah, I really like the way that the bosses do. But that's the night phase. These cubes will be moving in. You're trying to ward them off and take them out because you're going to spawn more infected all 3 phases in that night phase, night round. And so you're trying to get all them off the board so you don't have to melee attack because that's going to be much more dangerous for you. And you want to clear out specifically the direction you're going to go. So if we were on this base, and if we didn't move in the beginning of the game, that'd be a bad choice. I would suggest moving for sure in your first day phase of the game. But if we didn't, we'd be there. You see that the only way that we can go up from that is to go north. So we would really want to protect the north phase so that we could go up to number 6. Then after that night phase, we go back into the day phase. We would do those actions either in preparation or moving around the board. Then another night phase of those 3 rounds. And then the last, we could prepare and do the night phase again. By the end of the 3rd day, we must have triggered a finale, which means that piece needs to be on a certain location
somewhere out here
with a letter on it or an icon. Some will require you to do something before you go there. Some just require you to get there. Then what's going to happen is after that, you're going to initiate a finale. And a finale is going to be different based on which location you end at. And it's going to change like the whole ending of the game. You've done all these things. This is a full story campaign we're talking about now. And then this is like the scenario of the end. We're trying to finish out this campaign in one go, and we would have set up the board a certain way. Maybe we're trying to escape the city by going this way. Maybe we're trying to cut these ropes to lift this air balloon so we can escape, things like that.
Or maybe we're trying to kill the big baddie.
Well, he's a specific thing we're going to talk about in a minute when we flip this board over. So that is the base setup of, or how you would play, an overview of the base game of Carnival Zombie 2nd Edition. It's going to come with 6 heroes. You're going to use all 6 characters in every game. As you can see, their stress are their wounds. So once you get back here, you're facing terror. And in addition to that, you have 10 bosses, I believe, in the base game. And that's how all of that works. You're going to have several scenarios. So you have 3 or 4 different finales. In addition to that, you have some other modes. As you can see, these are all the scenarios and rule booklets for variation, not to confuse you and make you read more, but for variation with this game. There's a lot of variety. Some have to do with explaining character or boss abilities, but the majority of them are scenarios or finales. And you can play a scenario, which is going to be about 45 to 90 minutes. You don't do your pre-setup's really quick. Your setup is just you set up the board and you read what it says, and you would start playing based on the way that this scenario is going to act out. And it's going to be about 45 to 90 minutes. There's not a lot of build up and preparing your characters to do this. So just plan for a very tough time. It's going to be, I feel like the scenarios are a little bit tougher than doing a full campaign. Not to say that a campaign is easy, but I feel like you have more time to set up, find more items. You're still having to survive longer and do more because you're doing that full campaign. But you do get to kind of boost those characters a little bit more and make it last. So you have, I believe, 3 or 4 different scenarios in the base game, in addition to this other mode, which I have not had a chance to play. We played several times. but have not had a chance to use the Path of the Saints, which is a whole nother way that seems very interesting to play that we haven't had a chance to, because we really wanted to focus the majority of our plays, and we played a couple times with 2 or 3 times with the base set, and then 2 or 3 times with the Mediolanum, which is the deluxe edition. And when we talk about that, it's got a separate rule book. It's going to have different components, has another side of the board. A lot of the components you're going to use from the base game, but these additional bosses and heroes, you do have the option to use. So the Mediolanum or Deluxe Edition is going to come with 3 additional heroes, which work quite a bit differently than the base set. And then you're going to have another 6 bosses, and then you do have a miniature for the giant. Let me get its name correct for you. I don't want to say the wrong name here. Tarantasio. And it does have a just punch board token, but this is much nicer
more
to put on the
fierce
board.
looking and just intimidating.
So when you look at the Mediolanum board, it's going to be quite a bit different. You see a lot of spot UV. Both sides are very pretty. This one is, I just love the way that they did the spot UV on this. Yeah. Certain things that need to make more emphasis do shine.
Yes.
And stand out. But you'll notice this guy can go here. We usually put him on the side. This is where you're going to check for damage on Tarantasio. But over here in the Mediolanum, again, you're going to start in different regions based on how difficult you want it. And as you can see, it's already more difficult because we have a blue range and a yellowish orange, and then we have a red. And blue is kind of the easier part of the map. Then you have yellow, which is medium, and then red is the most difficult. In this mode, you're going to have some different tokens, which are like clue tokens, and there's another set of tokens. You're trying to match them. So there's 3 different colors with 3 different symbols, and you're trying to match them when you go searching. As you move into the middle of the map, though, that's when you're going to spawn more infected and more bosses. So it's one thing to keep in mind, but on the flip side, wherever you're located, you can flip over more tokens to try to match those. And at a maximum, you have to flip 4 tokens to initiate a finale. On the flip side, if you get lucky and you find the 2 that match the first time, you could initiate that scenario without having to find the additionals. So that's a plus side to that. So that's what this board is. You can see you're still moving based on cardinal directions here on the board, trying to protect those zones. So a lot of the base game still carries over. This is more difficult. Putting those foundry tokens out there are more difficult. The difference is you can actually end your day phase in a foundry token space on the Mediolanum map, which is, this is Milan, the other side was Venice. The difference is being able to do that, you can do here. You can't do it on the other side. And when you do, Tarantasio is going to come out, and you actually have to wound them all the way. So you'll see 2, 4, 6 wound spaces. And when you do that, you're going to leave one of the red cubes here. Next time, if he comes out, or it comes out, you're going to only have to wound it 5 times to get it off the board. So it does lower the damage for later because it is wounded, but it will come back if you end in a foundry space, which is allowed on this side, not allowed on the other side. In addition to that, like I said, you're finding these tokens, you're still doing everything else kind of the same in preparation and things like that, trying to survive through your day, night phases, finding those finale tokens to initiate 3 new types of finales, depending on which tokens you have. So the other one, you know where you're headed. This one, you're kind of lost, and you're kind of trying to find your way through to find the escape and find the way out, which could be some different scenarios. So and when I say scenarios, you do have scenario modes you can do with this side, but in addition to that, you're going to have 3 finale scenarios that you're going to use. Another really cool thing for this side that I do want to bring up, in addition to just the different bosses, Tarantasio coming out, the different characters, are you in the normal game, you're going to have a standard place to drop those cubes on the corpse pile. With this mode, it's really cool because it can be quite a bit more difficult too, we found out. It's based on the location you're at when you finish that day phase. When you're in the night phase, you're going to use that location's corpse pile location. And so if you were in 9 or 5 on the board over there, this is going to be sitting on these 4 yellow cubes, and it's going to be up here, and you're going to drop those cubes. And when those cubes drop off, we haven't told you, it's not great, because you're going to gain a stress for every cube that falls off, or if you have cubes fall off, then you've got to respawn them in one of the 2 zones of the direction that you had them removed from. So they respawn immediately,
Just
which
like zombies
makes it pretty tough.
Yeah.
And like some of these, like this one isn't as tough as you think it would be. This one's not super tough either. This one's not super tough, but this one
extremely tough.
Is super tough.
Yeah.
If you're stuck in 4 and 2, which is funny because they're the easiest part of the board. This tile here to be the corpse pile is tough. This tile here also
pretty
tough, and it is 1 in 7. So there's a trade-off of going into the city. You would think this is bigger in these holes, but they won't fall through these holes. It makes it a little off balance, but you can still fit more. These 2 safe locations on the board are very tough. They're tough to keep because you'll be dropping a lot of cubes on that board.
And you'll want to stack the cubes, or at least try to. You have to drop these cubes. You can't just like place them on there.
Yeah.
You got to be elevated a little bit and drop them onto the surface and hope they don't fall off.
And all together. So if you take off 4 people off the board in a turn because you got a boss character and that thing's full, you're probably going to lose some off the sides because you're dropping a bunch of them. You can't do one at a time. So now if you do an attack, take them off and drop it, then do your second attack and do that. Don't just do both your attacks and take them because they're separate attacks. When you drop them, it may help you survive a little bit better. So I want to talk real quickly about a couple characters. You've played a deluxe character. I've played a few of them. In addition to we've played, and I was talking to some of the designers of the game, and we were talking about our favorites and stuff. And I did bring up that one of my favorites is an expansion character, and that is the character you played. He's a little tougher at first, but it's the collector, Menagino. He reminds me of like a Michonne character. He likes to gamble, letting them get closer so that he can try and gain control of them. And he has a provocateur and dominator ability, and what his abilities are, and he has his own sheet here to help explain it. And on the backside are the new bosses. So like I said, they do a pretty good job of giving you all the information to help try to figure out each boss, each character, so you know how they work and not just relying on iconography. But the day ability is he can draw a cube from the abyss, and the bag is the abyss. If it is an infected cube, enchain it. If you draw a paranoid or survivor cube, put it back into the abyss and draw again. So he can do that as his ability, and you'll see he has different locations here on his board. If it's a purple cube, it would go there. That makes the attack value go up 1. If he gets a white cube, that's going to make his range go up 1. If it's a vermin, then it's going to make the bullets or the shots that he does go up 1. Over here, if he gets a big Goliath, that's going to give a splash or explosive attack, which is going to take out multiple people in one shot. Then you can put any cube here, which is going to make the collector's melee a 2 instead of 1. And then over here you have to where you can remove, if you remove one of these cubes, and you start with the card that's going to let you put 2 additional. you can remove a paranoid cube and a stress, which is going to heal your character essentially. In the night phase, if Minigino does not have a cube on number 6, he can, and there's an infected in the melee spot, they can actually attack that cube, remove it from the board. And so right here, when he's making an assault action and the chain box assault 2 is not active, when he is making a search action and gets an infector's result, remember those randomized cards that you use. If it shows an infected on there versus a survivor, he would be able to do this. And then in Venice, when resolving the story so far, he can choose to get 1 stress, 2, and chain 1. Basically, they will be taking that cube and putting it on the board. So this guy starts kind of, I wouldn't say weak, but not super powerful. But as you go, if you're chancing it and letting him get and putting him in the right place, that people are getting up to the front line, letting him take his melee actions and remove that cube and put it on his board, is going to make his future actions quite a bit stronger.
Right, yeah.
And then again, if he was super
can be really fun to
he can use that to heal himself by letting them go.
Yeah.
So that's the first one. I know you played him as well. What were your thoughts?
I enjoyed it. It was a really fun experience. It's a bit of a gamble, like Jeremy said, but as you continue to take those gambles and play and make smart choices, it pays off in the end. And by the end of the campaign or scenario that you're playing, you can really have a lot of fun with him, and he can do quite a bit of actions on his turns. So
I called him 2 chains with his first with his chains card. In addition, you do have the inventor, Rosara, the inventor. She actually has no cards. So every character will have, I think, about 11, 12 cards in their deck that they can use to search and try and find these items. She actually does not have any cards. She's actually going to use other people's cards in the game. And so if she invents something, she would take cards from other people, and she can use them. So she has the cool mechanic of being able to create and use all these other cards to help people get through their deck. She can also give cards to people whenever she's doing her actions, which she may have some to use for herself, but then see that you need it, and she can return that to you, and at times give you additional actions. So she was pretty cool to play with as well. The last one that we have is Balanzone. He is the infiltrator. This guy is wacko. He is nuts. This guy is crazy. He actually can never go into the refuge. So all your characters are always in the refuge, except if you play with Balanzone. Yep, the middle zone here where the infected cannot go is the refuge, where all your other characters have to be. This guy can never go in there. He is nuts. He is out there meleeing everybody. He does not have a weapon to start with. He's just got this little hatchet, and he's out there just cutting people up. And with his, he has 4 ones here. So this character is allowed to use these to move and attack, or attack and then move. He can never gain paranoia or stress from certain things. In addition, if he is in a space with an infected, at the end of his turn, he's going to gain more stress. Like I said, this guy is crazy. He's pretty loony. There's some other things on here that he cannot do. He cannot use, like survivors, things like that. But he is pretty sweet. I have played with him. He's a character that if you're like in Zombie side and you like to run up into a crowd and do
the tank character,
a bunch of things, he's a guy. Yeah. He will take stress at times because you're going to be stuck with people, because this board gets flooded with infected, and some you can't remove, and he can't run away into the center. But he is still he's a lot of fun to use, being that he's out there and everybody else is stuck in there shooting, and he's out there like, watch this, and everybody's like, oh, this dude's psycho. The bosses that you get are pretty cool too. for instance, I can read off what some of them do. So the stylist here, I would say Edward Scissorhands, but not quite. She actually, each infected has a +1 attack during this step 3 of the night. Place her in ring 3 of a random cave. So then we'd flip over that deck, see which cave it says, because they'll say, like I said, they'll say, is it infected? Is it a item? Is it a survivor? Then also on that card, which 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to show which character gets that random ability or whatever item. This will say East 1, East 2. So there's a lot of different things on those cards that help randomize and keep things fresh. And there's probably about 12 of them, 12, 15. I don't know off the top of my head. In addition, you have the flagellant.
I would not want to face that.
The flagellant. The characters cannot choose to get +1 stress to perform additional actions if he's on the board. So normally, you get an action, you can take more stress to do an extra action because you're overworking yourself. He does not allow you to do that. And then anytime you draw a paranoia, you put it on his card, and then he gets +1 life for each paranoia on that card. So he basically gets stronger from your paranoia. Let's do another one real quick. Let's do the bishop. When a number of infected fall from the pile of corpses, characters get stress equal to the number instead of just 1. So like we said earlier, if 1 falls off, so Jeremiah can't throw, try to make them all fall off. He would kill all of us off that.
Yeah.
But normally you take 1 stress and you respawn him. He's going to give you as 1 per each infected that you knock off of that corpse pile. So let's do one more, last one. The Smiler, because he's kind of cool. For each stress dealt to the characters by the bosses or infected, you're going to place a new infected in ring 3 of a random cave of the same pit, so lane, of the victim. So
he's bringing more people.
Yeah. So, like I said, there's several scenarios. We did Death in the Fog scenario for sure. And in this scenario, it's going to be a shorter game. It was pretty tough for us. But basically, you are trying to make your way through the fog. The fog has come in. You're trying to escape. And to do that, first off, you're going to start with paranoia. And so you can choose to remove the paranoia or you can leave it, which is going to make things a little bit more difficult for you. But in addition to that, you're using this sheet and you're going to be placing barricade tokens on the different spots here based on different cards that pop out. And that's going to dictate if you can remove bosses, because bosses are going to respawn until you quicklime them. Once you quicklime them and they permanently are removed, that one's not coming out. So you only have to worry about the new ones or the ones you weren't able to do that for, which makes things pretty tough again. So this scenario was a lot of fun. It was pretty quick. I think we lost in about 45, 60 minutes from starting. So, and if we hadn't lost, we would have probably won on the next round.
That's what I was going to say. It was close.
Most of the times in this game, it comes down towards the end. It's to the wire, whether it's a scenario, whether it's a campaign. It's coming down to the wire on, are you going to survive or are you not? You don't really plow through it and annihilate everything. And even on easy mode, it's difficult. We have played harder modes too to switch it up so it wasn't just easy every time. And I can tell you, it gets more difficult.
Yeah, as we get into our thoughts on the game, I think, to make a good tower defense game, it needs to teeter on that edge of the walls breaking down and all hope is lost, but not so much so that it's just like you have no chance. You need it to have that tension. And this game has it from jumpstart. Like it's like, oh man, here comes the wave. And not only did they just spawn on the entirety of the board, but some of them can spawn and then sprint all the way up to the front.
Or spawn them in level 2. Or spawn extra because of where you landed.
You are needing to take these guys out from the very jumpstart. And It requires a lot of teamwork. It requires a lot of communication between the players of saying, okay, I'm going to protect this region. I've got some range so I can take care of these slower guys that are in the back. Well, I'm the guy who can move around outside, and so I'm going to pick up the stragglers over here. Like, it takes good teamwork in this.
Mm-hmm.
And like Jeremy said, it's a challenging experience. You're not going to win this every time, and that's what makes a great co-op game too. So I really enjoyed this game, but I think what really kind of blows it away from all of the other zombie type games is that you really get the feeling this is a very thematic experience. One that I think really only Zombicide has ever given me, as far as like a zombie game where I truly feel like, oh, here come the zombies, and they're at the door, and if we don't take care of this, then there is no hope. So yeah, for me, this is a really thematic, very nicely done, well produced tower defense game. And tower defense isn't a genre that I'm super gung ho about, but when it's done like this and it's done well, and you have novel things in it like the corpse pile, man, it's really cool. Really cool.
And I will preface, we've not played every zombie game, so don't, jump us on that. I've not played Last Night on Earth. I hear that's very thematic too. We've played a bunch of Zombicides. Zombicide was in my top 10 forever, and I'm sure Marvel Zombies is going to have a good competition to get in there. This one might get in there too. I really love this game. I love the look of it. I love, like I said, the characters, how they match that carnival season or carnival celebration. I love the fact that the different bosses work. I love the options on many different ways to play this game. There are so many. It's no different than if you took another zombie game and you saw the 10 scenarios that has or whatever. I feel this has the same way, but in addition to that, they ramp the level of difficulty up, which makes it feel like another 10 to 20, because every time you play a different way, you're going to start at a different spot. Your setup's going to be different. If you start on hardest mode, you're not getting an item. You're over here, which means it's harder to get through places, to get to the places you want to be, because there's normally more movement costs it does, or you're way farther away. So really maximizing those actions so that you can get to the finale is big. So I love that. I love the way the different characters, each character feels different. There's a little similarity in a couple of them just because you have a big gunner and then you have this other guy that does like a 2 attack, not quite a 3 with his weapons, but it still feels quite a bit different because his abilities can do this, that guy's abilities do that, and then when you look at their item cards, they're so different that my item cards don't really mimic what yours do, and so it makes the theming of my character match more, and it makes it set apart from the other. So your base ability may be or stats may be similar, but once you get in and tap into those item decks, it's gonna feel like you're playing a different character. And so I'm really loving this game a lot. I love cooperative games. I love games with a theme of infected or zombies, horror themed games, I guess you'd say. So this one really spoke to me, and I appreciate that they sent a copy for us to review, because this is one I had seen before, and it was waiting for a reprint. Everybody was like, had talked about it. I didn't really think what the hype was going to be, but like we said, it's so different than the other because the corpse pile is a huge deal, and I think dropping those infected is probably one of the funnest parts of the game.
It is super tense.
And I was telling another friend, I enjoyed a game called Dead Reckoning. I am ready to play it again, but the fact that I didn't get to drop the cubes into the battle, I had no investment in that battle. I never got to drop them. I never got to drop them for anybody else, so I had no investment in the battle system. I was just like, tell me I died, I lose. I didn't care one bit. This, you have to drop your own cubes. And when you drop them and they fall, they affect you, which ultimately affects everybody. Yeah. So everybody has investment. to this pile and to set up. And so, I mean, Lance, I think it's time we just get into our scores for the game. We've given them an overview of the base game. We've given them a lot of what's in the expansion or the deluxe or limited edition copy that was on Kickstarter, which I don't know if it's available or not. If you have an opportunity to get it, I'd say definitely check it out. I'll go ahead and score first since I think I played a little bit more than you. I told you you're ready for this one. I'm going to give this game a 9.0.
Ooh.
This game, like I said, I love getting co-op games to the table, working together. We play competitive games quite often too, but usually people banter a little too much, which can happen. We banter in a co-op game too, but I don't always like people to feel defeated or like, oh, and be in a bad mood. So getting co-op games out or occasionally to break up those tension games is definitely nice. This is one that is a lot of fun for everybody. Like I said, it's a blast dropping the cubes and then teasing people when they fall off or whatever it may be. And it's all lighthearted. You've got all the different variety. And I'm scoring it off of the deluxe, but I mean, the core game itself, I still feel like there's a lot of content, being that you have 3 or 4 finales, you have 3 or 4 scenarios, you have that path of that other mode that you can play with that we haven't. You got 6 heroes that you're going to use them all, but different people may use them, so you feel a different way. And then you have 10 different bosses that you're going to see 6 to 10 are randomized how they come out. So I love the cooperative nature of it. I love the theme of it. I love the component quality, everything that they took the time to make. And I love that it's a different type of infected cooperative game that brings new fun mechanics. That's not the same thing you see every time.
Yep.
It's not like we took a certain game that we've named and we tweaked it a little bit with a new theme and put a new mechanic in it. I feel like there's quite a bit of new mechanic type stuff. Now, Tower Defense is in other games, but the way that everything came together for this cooperative type
final product,
zombie infected game, I think in the finale and the way the different phases of the game definitely makes it feel quite a bit different. And I really, really like this game. It has a lot of potential for other things to come in the future.
Right.
This is a 9 for me. So.
Well, I do really enjoy this game. I'm not nearly quite as high as Jeremy is on it, but that's probably largely in part due to I prefer smaller gaming experiences and not just grandiose big campaign experiences. If I was given the choice between a big campaign or a one-off scenario, I'm probably almost always going to pick the one-off scenario. But the great thing about this is that you do have these smaller... not one-offs, I guess, because you are playing multiple rounds, but it is still a smaller one-off experience. And usually when you do these one-off experiences, there's not really much immersion in it. It's just like, well, here's a little snippet of the game, and you don't really feel like you get the story or you don't get the flavor like you would in a campaign experience. You get that even in the one-off scenarios with this game. The dense fog one that Jeremy was talking about earlier, you really feel like
you're playing a different game,
you're playing a story, but it's a very compacted, condensed story, right? And that's really cool. I'm glad that this game is able to do that, and it doesn't require you to play 5 games of it on 3 different nights because it's a 15-hour-long campaign.
Well, that's not what it is. So a story campaign is only still going to be 1.
Well, sure, but
it's not. So when we say campaign, you're playing the pre-setup, your 3 days, and then you have a finale. It's going to be that 2.5 hour scenario campaign. It's not like I'm playing Bloodborne. I've got 3 chapter campaign that's going to take 5 hours, or even a Horizon Zero Dawn that's going to take. I've got to find the big machine. The scenario is a condensed version. It's only about 45 minutes. You're taking out the setup type stuff. You're just doing the 3-day phases, and you win or lose. So there's no finale at the end, and there's no pre-setup where you're doing actions to
So
get ready.
I might have misspoke when I was saying what I said, but what I mean is that you still get a full experience even in that short 45-minute one-off scenario.
Yeah.
So it's a really cool thing. But I also really enjoy how the mechanics blend into the theme, and they go hand in hand. I like that you're trying to traverse this map over here, and that influences how you play out the tower defense element here. And you really need to protect the direction that you're going in, or maybe you can't protect it, and so you have to forego that plan. And now I'm not going to go, west. I'm going to go east instead, kind of thing. And that can happen in this game, and it just completely changes your plans, which is fun. It's a fun experience. All in all, I think for this type of game, my score varies based off of what I'm going to be playing it for. If I'm doing that one-off, very thematic still experience, it's pretty high. I would give it probably about a 7.8. If I'm going in for the full campaign, and I know I'm going in for a full campaign, and this is going to be the star of the night, then I can sink my teeth into that and still have a really good experience. That's just usually not something that I'm always up for doing on a game night, but I'm there for it when it comes to that one-off experience or something that's going to just be super thematic and it's cooperative and we're going to be in for a long haul. I think that's a cool experience for that. So 7.8 for me. That's where I come in at. Okay. And that's our thoughts here on Carnival Zombie, the deluxe second edition, or limited edition, I should say, as it says right here on the board. So leave us some comments down below. Let us know what you think about this particular game. If you like the video, please hit the thumbs up icon, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon to be notified of all of our great new content. I'm Lance.
I'm Jeremy.
And we are Hard to Master, where we take a look at games that are hard to master. We'll catch you next time.
See ya.